Okay, and then let's see what we have here. Can do it a little bit. And then try to, okay, turn to page 24. We're going to learn about the halachas of hard cheeses to start with. Then we'll move on to Caleb. Halacha says that a cheese that's been aged deliberately for 6 months or more, or the sharp cheeses, they're known as 6-hour cheeses because they have a pungent kind of a taste to them and a sharp aftertaste and an effect. So Mishach Gvina Kosher one halacha yotes page Chavdalet. Hainu Gvina Yeshana Shish Chadash Gvina Telas. Cheese that's been aged for 6 months, or it's holy cheese, meaning it's got holes in it. Not that it's keep Shabbos and things like that. The minhag is that we wait 6 hours after eating such cheese before having meat products. Why? Because this cheese contains and carries a very strong aftertaste. And it lingers in the mouth for a long time. Most cheeses, are not in the category of sharp cheeses. Except for the Swiss cheeses and those that are similar to them, they have a lot of fat with strong taste. Now, any questions on what I said so far? Okay, now we're going to go into a whole new subject. To introduce this subject, I want to share the following with you. There are some things in Jewish law that are forbidden. Many things are forbidden. And there are some things that we're not supposed to do on the onset, but if they were done after the fact, it's okay. We can live with it. Not ideal, but we can live with it. And there are some things that we have a custom to do as a form of, like I would say, separation and a form of to create a healthy environment. So we're not going to come to make a mistake. That's what we're going to focus on right now. We're not supposed to take a dairy knife, a meat knife that's clean, and cut cold cheese. Now, technically, if everything's clean, and then you clean up the knife, nothing really happened after the fact, but it's not a proper thing to do. We're also not supposed to take a meat knife to cut bread that we're going to eat in a dairy meal. That's why it's better habitually to have what's known as a bread knife, a parb knife, because then it could be used for anything. The same would be in the reverse, to take a dairy knife and cut bread for the sake of eating it in a meat meal would be something that's not proper. What's the reason for this? We're now on the top of page Chaf Hey. Sometimes you have a little bit of the shamnunis, which means a little bit of fattiness that's on the knife. So then you're afraid that there may be some cross-contamination occurring. What happens if you're living in the dorm or you're camping out with your friend in the wilderness in Montana? You only have one knife. So if you don't have any other knives, you are allowed to use the same knife, but first you have to make sure it's thoroughly cleaned. So if you're camping outside in the woods in Montana, you can take the knife and stab it into untouched earth 10 times as a form of cleaning the blade. Or you can, if you're in your kitchen, you can take soap and steel wool and rub it as a form of thoroughly cleaning it from anything on the residue on the actual blade of the knife itself. We're not referring to what's absorbed in the knife, because there's no cold, there's no heat experience over here. There's no sharp. It's just a plain cold experience, if you will, or interaction. There are those that have a diktuk, meaning that they're careful to designate a knife just for cutting bread. And if someone can afford to do so, that's the proper thing to do. Kosva Paskin, the Paskin, right? You call Klei Habayis, each the place Mishnei Sugim Nefrodim, all people in the house, the vessels, you should buy, have separate, meaning separate dishes, separate utensils, even separate salt shakers, preferably, even though salt shaker is still easier because you don't stick your hands into the salt. One for meat, one for dairy. So I'll take your question in a moment. And if both, let's say both dishes are the same pattern. So when you set up your own homes, you're going to buy dishes, you're going to buy them in separate patterns. But let's say it's a caterer who's buying commercial dishes and they all look the same. Then you have to make a sign on one of the dishes to show which one they are, right? So they don't get mixed up. So if you're in a position where you have to make a sign on one of the dishes, meaning meat or dairy, we always make the sign on the dairy one. That's the minhag. Achlayasa siman ala v'sori communicate yisrael asamas chalav, because the minhag by Yisrael is to make the siman on the chalavi, and that's based on a pasuk I'll tell you in a second. If someone's going to be masham the minhag and change the minhag, then if we're going to come visit your home, they're going to see that this dish has let's say a sign, and they'll think automatically it's dairy when it's really meat. That's why you should make sure you only make the signs on the dairy dishes. And he says it's based on a pasuk. It says Besaseres Chartzei HaCholav. It's a pasuk in Shmuel. So charetz means to like engrave, to make some sort of a sign on the cholav. There's also a story with a blood libel. Rahman al-Islam, Shem should spare us, but the Yidden were able to save their lives because the fictitious tale that had a knife that was supposedly a Jewish knife, and it said Bisari on it, and they were supposed to using that to kill a Christian boy, to take the blood from the matzahs, the usual fictitious tale. And they called in a non-Jewish housekeeper and they asked her which knives are labeled in the Jewish home. She's worked in many Jewish homes. She said, I've only seen the dairy knives to be marked dairy, not the meat knives. And that was the basis on which they were able to disprove the whole blood libel and save themselves. Okay, regarding salt, I'll take your question right after that. In the past, they used to have like a salt dish where you actually dip the bread into the salt. Some people still have that. Then it's really proper to have two separate salt dishes, one for meat, one for dairy, because you're sticking your fingers inside, you're sticking food inside, there's going to be some residue there. Why? Because there's going to be some residue. But today that we have a shaker and we spray it on the food, and it's not common that residue is going to actually go on the salt. So you really technically do not even require to have two separate salt shakers. Today the minhag is also to designate two different kelim, one for meat, one for dairy. Any questions so far? Yeah, go ahead.
If you have a knife, which skin I can wash?
You can wash it in either sink, but try to wash it holding it in your hand. Mm-hmm. If it's sitting on the sink floor, again, if it's cold, it's not the end of the world, but try to wash like that. Sorry?
And if it's hot, it's supposed to be later.
If it's what?
If it's hot.
Hot?
If the skin is hot. So it's not more bad, right?
Yeah, but it depends. If there's soap, yeah, you do have to be a little careful about it. Yes.
Okay.
So if you're washing parv knives, you can wash them in either the fleshik or milchik sink, but don't put them inside the sink. Mm-hmm. Just wash them by holding them in your hand. That's the proper thing to do. Halacha Rav Beis. Din mapa v'din alechem v'nishalach hasidus. The halacha about the mapa, which means the cloth, the thing that you bring down as like a placemat, and the bread that's after the meal. So let's say, for example, you have a Shabbos meal, which we're going to have, Mr. Shem, tomorrow night. You have a challah board. The challah board is like, in a way, is like an island. It's like an oasis, because that's all you put on it. You don't put your challah on it, you don't put your schnitzel on it, you don't put your kugel on it. You're just putting challah there. So any bread that's on the challah board can be presumed to be just parv still. if it came on par, because it hasn't left there. But once it leaves the challah board oasis and goes to your plate, and on your plate you have fleishiks and this and that, you can no longer assume it to be parv anymore. Halacha base. Also, so you don't use obviously a fleishik replacement for milchiks, and the same in the reverse. Now we turn to chavav. Also, the bread that remains on the table after eating meat, you don't eat together with dairy. So it's in the reverse. Some say this is only talking about small pieces. You cut them up to eat with meat. You're not careful that they shouldn't touch meat. But the pieces of bread on the table, that from this you cut bread. The one that's already on the table, that's going to be on the challah board, you're careful that it shouldn't touch with meat. So you are allowed to take that off the table, as long as it remained there the whole time, and it came on as parv, it still remains parv. We're talking about, obviously, if it's a civilized kind of meal, where people are not going around touching everything with their hands, using cutlery. So, but on the other end, if let's say you have kids that hands are full of shalant and it's meat and gooey and they're touching everything, then the bread's not going to remain parv anymore. It's obviously something you have to just look at every situation, every circumstance according to that situation. Before you swap over from a meat meal to a dairy meal, you just remove the foods that we're eating together with the dairy that could have come in contact with dairy, that is. Okay. Halacha of Gimel gets into a very interesting discussion, which is very common. Many people, especially when they first start out in their kitchens and their appointments, they have one stove, one oven that they'll use to bake product in. So can you use the same oven for meat, for dairy, for bread? How is that handled? It's a lot. Now, can you use them with one covered, one uncovered? How is this all done? It's a question. I didn't say you could, I said it's a question.
Sorry.
It's okay. Just want to make sure you understand me. It's a question because it's a common situation. Many people don't have two ovens. Ideally, of course, it's best to have two ovens. Some people have the luxury of having three ovens, but not everyone has. Sometimes the kitchen's not big enough for that. So tanner gas, a gas oven, a chashmal or electric. One should not bake or roast meat foods and dairy foods together, because the smell and the taste go from one to the other. The same would be if you bake bread together with meat. One should not eat that bread together with dairy, because the bread becomes meat. So you're allowed to make dairy foods after eating meat foods when they're dry. When the oven is clean from any leftover meat and fat. So we're getting into a halacha which is difficult to actually implement. If you have a food that's dry and the oven is clean, there's not going to be any cross-contamination. Most foods are not dry. I'll give you a practical definition of how we define a dry food. For example, a challah is a dry food. So if I take a challah and I'm wearing a silk kapata and I rub it on my lapel, is it going to make an oil stain on my lapel? No. I just brush off the crumbs and you won't see anything. But most other foods, even if let's say a kugel or a cholent, for sure if it's shalom, but even if there's a schnitzel, if I rub it on my lapel, it's going to create an oil stain. It's not considered to be a dry food. So if it's a dry food that has no liquidity and the oven is clean, then it's just dry heat, then there won't be a cross-contamination. The challenge is that it's not always so easy to verify and to be sure that the oven is really 100% clean. Because let's say I baked, let's say I just made a dish with schnitzel, let's say it was chicken with rice, and there was a lot of liquidity there. So then you have the steam rising up into the wall, top of the oven. So the oven's really not clean, unless I cleaned it first. So that's just something to be aware of. Halacha Dalet. It's all talking about baking or cooking something that doesn't have any liquidity, but something that has liquidity. Mali Idim gives off steam. There's a concern that the meat dish is going to give off steam and it's going to make the oven meat. Because when you're going to go bake another food, the steam of the food is going to go to the oven and it's going to drip down again down below and come into the taste of the meat into the food. You're not allowed to eat that food together with challah, with dairy. Only if these two foods have liquidity. If one of them don't have liquidity, or it does give off steam, but the pot is covered. But if everything's covered, there's no room for the steam to escape. It's in a closed pot, it also would not be a problem. But most of the times, there is some sort of liquidity which creates a problem. What I said is that if you have the foods inside the oven, they're covered, so there's not going to be a problem if the oven rack was clean and the food is covered. It's not going to be affected by the surroundings, because in halacha, dry heat does not create an absorption. Only if you have liquid, then you create an effect, a problem. That's why, by the way, parenthetically speaking, we're allowed to take a food and double wrap it and put into even a treif oven. I remember I was like a year and a half ago, maybe it's actually a little bit more than a year ago, my family and I, we went on vacation, Cholamoyed took us for one night. Stayed over in this like little condo in Montauk, Island. And, I brought along food, which we cooked at home, and I wanted to warm it up for supper. It was rice. So I brought along a small, let's say, I don't know exactly, so it's like a square aluminum pan, or even a 9x13. I put that into a larger pan. I covered both of them, so it was double covered. I put it into the oven, and I made sure to keep it closed while it was in the oven. I took it out, and it was hot food. It's very good. No problem. Gosh, was because it was double covered. That's always a good thing to be able to do. If you're traveling or if you're visiting someone who doesn't keep kosher, another thing you can do, you can have hot food. You can double wrap a potato in silver foil, put it into a treif oven, and then take it out. Make sure that when you take it out, it has to remain covered. But once it's out, you can uncover it and eat it. So it's just something to be aware of. Okay. I think I'm up to Halacha Dalet, right? Is that correct, or Chavav? Chavav? Okay. So Chavav, L'chein haderech hamavcheres, the best way is l'mi she'ein lo yatan rechaz. What happens if someone only has one oven? What should you do? So then you're going to designate it to be what status? Say, okay, I'm going to keep my oven. You look at you discuss it, Mitzvah Shem, with your husband. Say, okay, what do we eat most of? We mostly have fleishiks in our house. So we're going to make the oven fleishik. And when we have dairy, we're going to make sure that the dairy gets baked in here covered only, double covered. Or let's say you like to have more dairy than meat. You can do it in the reverse. We say, okay, the oven's going to be dairy. Whenever we're going to actually bake meat in here, we're going to keep that double covered. And if you have only one oven and you need to use it both for meat applications and dairy applications, to designate the oven to be either meat or dairy. And choose the type of food that's cooked in there more frequently, more often, without a cover. If someone decides, let's say, for example, the oven should be meat, you'll let it go ahead and cook meat dishes, even if they give off steam, without a cover. But don't cook any dairy dishes that give off steam without a cover. Only with a cover. Dry dairy food. If it's a dry dairy food, which is very uncommon, if you clean the oven thoroughly, then technically you don't have to cover the dry dairy food. And if you did it in the reverse, let's say you made the oven to be a dairy oven, so then every time you're going to bake meat foods in there, you should do them covered, unless the oven's been cleaned out. And then if it's a dry meat food, it would be allowed. But if it's not dry, it always has to be covered. But on the other, in all cases, if the oven is clean, you can bake dry foods in there, as long as they're not being done at the same time. And you clean the oven between baking. So he says here, which is a piece of advice. If you're going to go and bake or cook meat or dairy after each other in the same oven, put down a piece of silver foil. Near aluminum, put down a piece of aluminum foil under the pot. If some food spills off, let's say it bubbles over the pot or spills down, then you can clean out, you just take out the silver foil, but whatever is spilling down is not going into the oven itself, so you don't have to then go and clean the oven. The oven stays clean. It's just a good idea. If you do put silver foil on the rack of an oven, just be aware that you can't really move around the pot on it because it's going to rip the silver foil. You just have to kind of put it down there and leave it. Halacha Chav Zayin. A couple more halachas. I want to tell some stories maybe. In B'miknas Satara B'Sari, if the oven becomes fleishik, and you want to now use it for dairy without a cover. Some say you can clean it out. You wait 24 hours. Then you turn on to the highest temperature for 1 hour. Some say you can't necessarily kasher this way. So everyone should ask their Rav the Shaila. Basically, the challenge, let me just explain this challenge here when it comes to kashering ovens. In Chumash it says that whatever gets absorbed with fire, you can purge with fire. So I'll explain. So let's see something, for example, I have a barbecue spit and I'm putting the chicken on it and it's going right over the fire. So it's absorbed through fire. The way I'm going to kasher that spit is through fire itself. Water is not going to be strong enough to get the taste out. So it's like principle. Whatever gets absorbed with fire, I have to kosherize with fire. Now, the challenge here is that when it comes to ovens, we're not dealing with any live fire. We're dealing with heat. So to be stringent, we say that it absorbs because there's heat involved. But who says that we can actually use heat to purge something, to kosherize something? It doesn't say that in the Chumash. That's where you get into a whole discussion. But some people allow it, some don't allow it. It's on that basis alone. In actuality, in practice, people do kosherize ovens. If you want to go from dairy to meat, it's best to wait 24 hours. If you're just going from, let's say, dairy to parv, or meat to parv, which is an easier progression, then you don't have to wait the 24 hours. You just turn on the oven for an hour. That's pretty much how that's handled. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Should we verbring a little bit now?
Yes.
Okay, so after close the svarim. Chavches, koyach. We're up to page chavches and halach chavches. Double koyach. First of all, it's Rosh Chodesh Kislev. It's tonight for Rosh Chodesh. And my last name is Hanukkah. So I have a certain kind of, I'm a little partial to this month. It's my holiday. And the Rebbe said about my father when he came to the Rebbe, Heister Chanukah, his name is Chanukah, you should come learn your Chanukah time. My father's Chassidish Yom Haledes, his Chassidish birthday is Asar B'Teves Tashon Chal Beis. Came to the Rebbe in 1962. Actually, that would be 1963 already, probably, because of the new year. Asar B'Teves Tashon Chal Beis. I'll share with you a story that happened to me when I was a bacher. So, Chassidim verbringen us on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So that's when the Rebbe recovered from the heart attack, Tafshan Lamed Ches, 1978. Actually, 77. And so I was in 770 when I was a bacher. It was Tafshan Nun Beis, 1992. Makes sense? Yeah, 1992. Tafshan Beis, and I grew up in Boston. I always wanted to have to see Lubavitch develop in Boston. It would bother me because certain parts of Lubavitch were underdeveloped. Maybe I had a complex about it. Maybe it just bothered me. I wanted to do Miftzoi in there. So I made a chlata that I'm going to arrange Miftzoi in Hanukkah time in Boston. I'm going to rent a mitzvah tank. And I got my friends together. We all made a l'chaim. I said, well, come, I'll take you to Boston for Hanukkah. We'll stay over. We'll do Miftzayim for the whole week. And this story happened 1992. Is that right? No, I got my dates right. I think so. Yeah, that's correct. So I was, how many years ago? 1992 was 29 years ago. Makes sense? I'm all confused, huh? Yeah, 29 years ago. I was a bacher at the time, and anyway, so I had to raise money for this mitzvah tank project. I had to raise $400. In those years, it cost $100 a day to rent the mitzvah tank, a mobile home. So I went to my sister; she gave me $100. I went to my parents of blessed memory; they gave me $100. My sister was already married; so her husband was working. And then I figured the other $200, I'll put it together, I'll figure it out. I had some Meiser money from when I worked in camp, and I used that also. But I had about $3 out of the $400. I wasn't worried about how I'd figure it out because it comes, you have a push on the tank. Anyway, so I had 4 days to do Miftzayim there. I got to Boston on a Sunday. Monday morning, I come to the place, to the rental company. I said, give me the biggest mitzvah tank that you have. I wanted to go to Boston and make a shtorim, which means I wanted to make go with an impact. They gave me a 29-foot flat front tank, pretty big. And when my father came to the Rebbe in Tafshan Chal Beis in 1962, After learning in 770, like for a year, so like a year or two later, like in 1964, the Rebbe told him to go back to university to finish his degree. My father said to the Rebbe, maybe you should go to a Jewish university. Maybe you should go to Brandeis, because it was a Jewish university. So the Rebbe said to my father that a Jewish university can go one of two ways. And they did not go the right way. Meaning to say that it's very secular. It's better to go to a non-Jewish university. So my father, Dr. Noka, so Dr. Noka's son, I said to myself, if the Rebbe told my father that he shouldn't go to Brandeis University to finish his studies, he should go to a regular, non-Jewish university. So when I'm coming to Boston to do Mivtzayim, the first place I have to go to is Brandeis, because they need light. So in classic Chabad style, I came without an appointment. I just showed up, rolled into town. I had the music blaring, me and 3 other friends, and I pulled up to Brandeis, and we parked right in front. Boom, we've arrived. Chabad is here. Watch out, So 2 of my friends went inside to meet with students and professors, and my friend and I stayed by the tank because I was the driver, giving out Hanukkah stuff and talking to people. My friends don't come out. They don't come back. I thought they got like captured or something. I don't know what happened to them. Like 4 hours later, they come back and they tell me that they met with professors, and some people asked them if this was prearranged, because I said, no, it wasn't prearranged at all. I told you the story. I came here because the Rebbe said to my father that a Jewish university can go one of 2 ways, and then they didn't go the right way, and that's why I wanted to come here first. He says, well, because we met a professor who said to us that they had a meeting amongst the professors to determine whether or not it would be advantageous for the students to have Chabad come to Brandeis on campus for Hanukkah. And they determined that it would be a good idea. So they figured that's why we're here. So they came up with this meeting. They never told me, never told us. And we came, so Hashgacha protest, they all came together. We ended up doing Mivtzayim the rest of the week in various places. It was a lot of success. The last day of Mivtzayim was a Thursday, and I parked the tank on Harvard Street. Harvard Street is like the Kingston Avenue of Brookline. That's where it is. It's like the Jewish track. It's where they got the Jewish bakeries, kosher bakeries and stores and the restaurants, whatnot. And I'm parking this monster of a tank. My friend's helping me, making sure I don't break any trees and signs, whatnot. And I parked the tank. As soon as I park the tank, I come out, I see this middle-aged woman. She's staring at the tank. She's like, she's fixated. She's captured. I can see already by her facial expressions. So I went over to her, I greeted her. I said, Happy Hanukkah. Can I help you? She says to me, at that point, by the way, I had raised another $40 through money of tzedakah, and I had given some of my own money. I needed $60 more to finish up paying for the tank. But I wasn't worried. I just figured it's going to come together. So she says to me, yeah, Rabbi, I just came from the hospital. This woman is like in her 50s. She said she was visiting her mother, who was elderly, and she's in the hospital. She just recovered from some kind of operation. She wanted to know, these are her words, if I could recommend a charity that she can contribute towards in merit of her mother having a speedy recovery. So I said, the work that we do over here is nonprofit, it's communal work, it's mitzvahs on the spot for people's on the go. I think it's a very good cause. She said, it sounds good, Rabbi. So I go inside, I bring out the pushka. She takes out 3 $20 bills. This is 40 years ago. I'm not 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and puts it into the pushka. And it was exactly the amount of money I needed to pay for the Mitzvayim. So I saw clear signs from the Rebbe. You do the work, and then everything, God takes care of everything. And so that we left, we finished Mitzvayim that afternoon on a very big high. My friends went home. I stayed for Shabbos. I returned the tank on Friday morning. And then I had to go shopping because I needed to buy clothes. My mother, of blessed memory, she was an expert. She could find the best quality clothing at the best prices. She knew she was a European. She had a certain taste. So she taught me how to shop. Even though I hate shopping, like most men, they can't stand shopping. They go with their wives. They have to sit on the bench. But they're safe. Otherwise, they go crazy. They can't do it. They're not wired that way. Anyway, I went to Filene's Basement, which was a store that had all kinds of good quality stuff. And I walk into the sales rack to find a suit. I need a suit. So I used to always buy brand new suits, but I'd get them at a good price. We couldn't afford to buy. We weren't poor, but middle class. Thank God we couldn't afford to buy them. These expensive suits. I go to the sales rack. I find a Burberry suit at 75% off, exactly my size, a nice Chassidish color. Everything fit perfectly. I said, okay, this is the Rebbe's. Like, just no shopping. It took me 5 minutes. It's like exactly what a man likes to do. You go to the store, you find what you need out. No shopping. I can't stand it. Yes, I found that, and I saw another sign from Hashem. I said, okay, you did my work. We took care of you. I'll tell you another story. It happened Hanukkah time with my brother. My brother's a shliach in California, Pasadena. Hopefully you get to know him, you get to meet him. He's a family clown. He's not really a clown. He's a rabbi. He's the oldest in the family. He's a serious individual, but he's also very funny. So he does a lot of. He's in charge of the whole Pasadena area, the whole St. Gabriel Valley. So he was putting up public menorahs all over, and he was putting one up in the local mall. And one year the mall decided, like a month before Hanukkah, that they're not doing it anymore. They're not allowing it. The mall is owned by some chain in Ohio, some kind of a Midwestern chain. So my brother was very pained by this development. So he spoke about it by a JLI course. He was giving a course in Chabad House. And one of the women wrote a letter to the editor of the Jewish newspaper, said, how could it be that they allow the Xmas tree, they don't allow Chabad Hanukkah menorahs? And my brother didn't even know about this. And the Chinese TV station, there's a lot of Chinese people living in that area. They picked up on the story, they found a letter there, and they called my brother, came to interview him. So Chabad loves publicity. So my brother takes out the menorah on the Chabad House property. He makes sure to be interviewed right in the backdrop of the menorah. And he's telling everybody how, we have this menorah, and he doesn't understand why they're not allowing it. The story goes viral. My brother had already printed up flyers and brochures for this event. So there was a little bit of a loss there also in terms of the effort they put in. Until the story went viral, and they got a lot of people came to called the mall to complain that they got a lot of bad press from this. Until the head of the mall corporate called my brother to beg him to bring back the menorah. So my brother says to me, he says, now he called me back. I wanted him to sweat a little bit. So I said, I have to think about it, find out, we have to make sure we can arrange it. I want to do it, but I have to because we had arrangements already and we printed flyers. Now we have to change the date. Go on. Rabbi will pay all expenses. My brother says to me, he says, okay, I had the flyer and everything. I had to pay that. They paid the Chabad mortgage that month because of all the delays they had, all the brochures, everything turned out. We have to have to sign. Everything turned around. So that was a modern day Hanukkah miracle that happened to Rabbi Hanoka in Pasadena. And after that, there were people that came out of the woodwork, these Jews that own buildings in the area, said, Rabbi, I want you to come and put a menorah on top of my building. So it brought about even more menorahs. Sometimes whenever you have a little bit of a resistance, you have some challenges that's only meant to bring us even further, to bring out even more light. Anyway, l'chaim, Chodesh Kislev. I'll tell you one more quick thing. I'm sorry, I just can't stop. When I was a bach in the yeshiva, I still remember this moment, and I yearn for these days to somehow bring them back. The Rebbe gave a hayra that you have to fabring every night of Chodesh Kislev. So we used to fabring from 9:30 at night until 11 o'clock every night for a month. We walked around shikr, not because we drank mashke. We were shikr because we were living on this cloud, living on a different plane. That's the avodah v'chassid, to live with such spirituality in the world, bring it down to the Eilam HaMaisa, be feilich yidden, l'chaim. Shabbos, like this. Chodesh.
Thank you.
You won't tell on me that I tell all these stories. I don't want to get into trouble. No, I'm just kidding. They know about it. They know that.